Hollywood Heritage is on location. We're standing in front of 1500 Vine Street at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Vine. You know it as the Chase Bank building, but originally it was purpose-built by Howard Ahmanson for his home savings and loan financial institution. He built 150 of these with architectural designer Millard sheets in the mid-century. This one is our next historic cultural monument applicant. Stay tuned for information about how you can help to landmark this building, but now let's hear from someone who has a deep personal connection to the building and who is the author of the application.
Hi, I'm Katie Ahmanson. I am the preservation intern at Hollywood Heritage and a Master's of Heritage Conservation student at the USC School of Architecture. I wrote the Historic Cultural Monument nomination for this building. Nearly 6 years ago, my great-great-uncle Howard Ahmanson started the Home Savings and Loans Bank Company. And this building in particular was in 1968. My family has a long heritage with these banks, and it means a lot to be standing in front of it today, nominating it for a historic designation. When the banks were first designed, my great-great-uncle Howard asked Millard Sheets to do whatever he wanted with the building, and when Millard Sheets called and asked some questions about what he would prefer, he hung up. Millard Sheets ended up calling back and saying, "I think we might have lost contact," and Howard said, no, there was no loss of contact. I hung up on you on purpose. I gave you free reins for a reason. Take them." And that was the end of the conversation. This is a stained glass portrait by Susan Hurdle, and it features different chase scenes from Hollywood movies throughout its history. We have the Keystone Cops as well as Moby Dick featured in this portrait. In the front, there's a fountain by Paul Manship of Europa writing Zeus. The fountain was designed by Millard Sheets and incorporated this sculpture into the design. Another significant feature of the building is the double height casement windows. They're framed in bronze and have bronze entablatures. Here we have the white granite and black granite mural. This is some of the mosaic tiling of Betty Davis here in costume. But here you can see we have the black granite and white granite as well as the travertine cladding that is framing the rest of the building. Here's some more artwork by Millard Sheets. He was given full reign to design both the architecture and the art of the building, so you see a real combination of both art in the mosaics and the tiling or the murals in the architecture of the building. This building was designed in a new formalist style, which basically takes the elements of the classical style and strips them down. So a lot of the decoration is within the post-lential structure of the columns and the entablature. My great-great-uncle Howard wanted a building that was going to last into the future and remain significant no matter what era. So these are some of the promotional items that my family has kept throughout the years. Home Savings and Loans really made an effort to reach out into the community by providing these types of items. The money clip. And here we have a keychain that also turns into a lapel clip. And then of course, a classic home savings pen. Initially, this was the site of the Jesse Lasky barn where his production company filmed some of the first movies. Today, the barn is owned by Hollywood Heritage, who owns the museum and has moved it to Highland Avenue.
We're here at the Hollywood Heritage Museum, which everyone knows is a wonderful silent movie history museum. But did you know that this barn was originally in a different location and was actually moved here to become the Hollywood Heritage Museum? So it was originally an actual barn that was used on a ranch, And in 1913, when Jesse Lasky and Cecil B. DeMille came to Los Angeles to take advantage of all the light to shoot their silent movies, they leased this barn. And when they leased the barn, it was on the corner of Selma and Vine. Well, eventually they expanded their studio all the way down to Sunset and Vine. And at that time, they were still using the barn. They had a nostalgia for it, but they built actually a fairly large studio, which they outgrew. They eventually went to Paramount, and they took the barn with them. But flash forward many years later, in 1968, roughly where the barn was is where the Chase Bank building is now. At that time, of course, it was Home Savings and Loan, built by Howard Ahmanson. When Jesse Lasky and Cecil B. DeMille first leased this barn from Jacob Stern with an eye towards using it as their production facility, they were still making short silent movies. But they were about to do something that became the first feature-length silent film that was ever made. That film was called The Squaw Man, and it was released in 1914, and some scenes of it were filmed around the barn. Now, to commemorate all the history that had happened on that corner of Sunset and Vine, Millard Sheet Studios, which was the architectural designer for all of the Home Savings and Loan buildings, decided to create a tribute to Hollywood. And in doing so, they created tile murals, painted murals, and stained glass windows. And the one pièce de résistance inside the bank that you can only see if you bank there is a mural depicting 4 of the scenes that were filmed by Cecil B. DeMille of The Squaw Man, and he's actually painted as part of it. So the mural was done by the Millard Sheet Studios, and there's also a lot of commemoration of all of the film and eventually radio and television history on that site. And so what they did is they created these beautiful murals out of tile, and they depict a lot of the famous silent film stars of the day in costume from some of their most famous movies. So you'll see Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, Dolores Del Rio, Rudolph Valentino, and even on the back we see Julie Andrews, who was in Mary Poppins in 1964, and that of course opened just a few years before the bank building opened in 1968.